I was sitting on the couch, half listening to some old rerun humming in the background, when the envelope dropped onto the floor through the mail slot. I almost didn't bother getting up, but something about the handwriting pulled me in. Familiar, sharp, almost too careful. I opened it slowly, my fingers already starting to tremble, as if my body knew what my heart hadn't caught up to yet. Inside was an invitation, white and gold, delicate, annoyingly perfect. It was from my sister, my younger sister. She was getting married.
To him.
To Jacob, my ex. I stared at the names printed on that glossy card like they belonged to strangers. But I knew them better than I wanted to admit. My chest tightened, my breath caught halfway out, and I had to sit down before the room spun completely out of control. It wasn't just the wedding.
It was them.
Together. Officially. A part of me wanted to scream, tear the invitation apart, throw it in the trash, and pretend it never happened. But I just sat there. Frozen. Like I was stuck in some weird timeline where the ground under me had tilted without warning. I dialed Mia's number, without thinking. My hands shook as I held the phone to my ear, heart slamming against my ribs. She answered on the second ring. Hey, what's up? They're getting married, I said. My voice cracked in the middle. Mia, she's marrying Jacob. There was a pause. Who?
Isla.
My sister. The silence stretched just long enough for me to picture Mia blinking in stunned confusion. Then, you've got to be kidding me. I wish I were. What the hell is wrong with her? I don't know. I don't even know how to feel. Angry? Betrayed? Stupid. All of the above, she said sharply. You're not thinking about going, are you? I didn't respond. Tell me you're not going, Mia said again. Please. I don't know. You shouldn't. You owe them nothing, especially after this. It's disgusting. I swallowed the lump forming in my throat. It's not just about them. It's like this weird, gaping hole just opened up in me. Like I meant nothing. Like the whole time I was with him, I was just filler. No, she said fiercely. You were everything. They're the ones who should feel like garbage. I leaned back into the couch, the invitation still in my lap, like it weighed more than it should. The paper was pretty, expensive looking, almost as if they wanted to make sure their betrayal looked beautiful. The lake had been still that evening, painted with streaks of orange and pink as the sun dipped low, pulling the light with it. I remember thinking how rare it was for Lake Michigan to be that calm. It felt like the world had slowed down just for us. Jacob held my hand as we walked along the shoreline, barefoot, the sand warm beneath our feet. We'd been together for 5 years. Through college, our first crappy apartments, endless late-night takeout, and the quiet comfort of just existing together. He knew how I liked my coffee, how I needed absolute silence to fall asleep, how I laughed hardest when I was nervous. He knew the corners of my soul I'd never even shown my family. And I knew him, every scar, every silence, every soft part he kept hidden from the world. That night, he had seemed nervous. I noticed it in the way he kept adjusting his sleeves and how his voice had this soft tremble to it when he talked about the future. And then just as we reached that little bend in the shoreline, our spot, the one we always came back to, he stopped walking. I need to ask you something, he'd said, eyes locked on mine. I blinked, smiling. Okay. Then he dropped to one knee. Just like that. My heart had launched into my throat. I remember the way the lake shimmered behind him, like the sky had spilled into the water. He pulled out the ring, simple, delicate, exactly what I would have chosen. I don't want to do life without you. Not one day of it. I couldn't even speak. I just nodded, then said yes through tears, and he wrapped his arms around me and lifted me off the ground like we were the only 2 people in the world. Everything else had disappeared in that moment. Noise, doubt, time. We spent the whole night wrapped in blankets under the stars, talking about where we'd live, how many kids we might have, and what the first dance song would be. We planned out decades of our lives together, like it was the most natural thing in the world. And now he's marrying my sister. That ring, the promises, the plans, it all feels like a cruel joke I hadn't seen coming. I keep going back to that moment by the lake, like maybe if I replayed enough, I can make sense of how something so pure could lead to something so brutal. Was any of it real? Did he mean it even then? Or was I just the trial run before he figured out what he wanted? The betrayal doesn't just sting. It shatters. Because when someone you loved that deeply, that truly, turns around and hands all of that to someone else, someone who shared your childhood, your blood, it makes you question everything. Not just them, but yourself.
It wasn't supposed to happen that way.
I wasn't supposed to be home until Sunday night, but the final meeting got canceled, and I figured I'd surprise him. I even grabbed his favorite pastries from that little place he loved. I was smiling when I walked through the door. I remember that clearly, smiling. The apartment was quiet. Jacob's jacket was slung over the back of the couch, his laptop open on the kitchen counter. He wasn't expecting me. I was halfway to the bedroom when I noticed his phone buzzing on the nightstand. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But something about the way it kept lighting up over and over made my chest tighten. I walked over, picked it up without thinking. It was unlocked. Messages.
Dozens of them.
I wish I could erase what I saw, but those words are burned into my mind like acid. Her name wasn't there, not at first, just hearts and half-finished sentences. Wish you were here tonight. Miss the way you look at me when no one's watching. She's still gone. Come over. My hands started shaking. I scrolled faster. More messages. More proof. Then I found the photo. It wasn't explicit. It didn't have to be. Her face was barely in it, just enough to catch the edge of her jaw, her necklace, the one I'd seen 1,000 times growing up. It was her. It was Vanessa. I couldn't breathe. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, holding that stupid phone in my hands, like it had turned to ice. The front door opened behind me. I turned slowly. He froze when he saw me. Paige. I held up the phone. How long? He didn't answer. How long has this been going on? I asked again, my voice rising. He rubbed his face, tried to speak, and stopped. It wasn't supposed to, look. It just happened. I laughed. I laughed. That bitter, broken kind of laugh that makes your throat burn. You cheated on me. With my sister. I didn't plan it. Things with us. They'd been off for a while. Don't you dare blame this on me. I took a step forward. 5 years, Jacob.
5 years of my life. Plans.
Promises. And you throw it all away for her. He tried to reach for me. I backed away like his touch was poison. I left. I walked out without another word, without my bag, without my coat. I didn't feel the cold until I was halfway to my parents' house. When I told them, Mom cried. She kept saying, "No, not Vanessa." She would never. Dad just sat there, silent, jaw clenched, not looking at me. And when I asked if they knew, if they'd seen this coming, they both shook their heads, but something about the way Mom wouldn't meet my eyes told me everything. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was alone. My sister stopped answering my calls. My mother kept saying, "Maybe it's not what you think." My father tried to stay neutral, but I could see the disappointment etched in his face every time my name came up. No disappointment in me. In everything. The walls of a life I'd built cracked, then collapsed. I didn't just lose Jacob. I lost my family. And nothing made sense anymore. I stopped answering their calls. My mom. My sister. Even my dad. I didn't block them. I just let the phone ring over and over until the sound didn't sting anymore. Eventually, it stopped ringing altogether. I moved out of the apartment that Jacob and I once shared, packed everything I could in silence, and left behind the memories that clung to the walls. I found a small studio on the other side of the city, nothing fancy, just clean and quiet. Exactly what I needed. Work became my anchor. I buried myself in projects, deadlines, and presentations. If I were working, I wouldn't be thinking. And if I wasn't thinking, I wasn't falling apart. My boss noticed the change, but didn't say anything. Maybe she thought I was trying to get promoted. Mia, thank God, didn't buy any of it. She came over every other day, sometimes with takeout, sometimes with wine, sometimes just herself. She never pushed, never asked too much. She'd sit with me, talk about everything and nothing, and make sure I ate something more than granola bars. "I'm not letting you rot in here," she said one night, curled up on my couch in sweatpants. You're allowed to feel like crap, but I'm not letting you disappear. It was her idea to start therapy. Dr. Bennett was calm in a way that made me uncomfortable at first. She didn't rush me. She didn't flinch when I told her I couldn't look at my sister's name without wanting to scream. She simply nodded, asked questions, and slowly, very slowly, helped me unpack what had broken inside me. It's not just about them, she said during one session. It's about the rupture of safety. Trust was the foundation of your world. And it collapsed. I nodded. I didn't have the words, but she'd just said what I couldn't. I tried dating. Once or twice.
Just coffee.
Just conversation. But every time, something inside me braced for impact. The men were kind, patient, even, but I couldn't let them in. Couldn't let them close enough to touch the places that still hurt. You don't owe anyone healing on a deadline, Dr. Bennett reminded me. This isn't about being okay for someone else. So, I permitted myself to be messy. Some nights I cried without knowing why. Some days, I felt like I could finally breathe again. The grief came in waves, but the distance from it was growing. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was drowning. The second invitation arrived on a Thursday. Same ivory envelope. Same perfect lettering. Only this time, there was a handwritten note tucked inside, folded neatly behind the RSVP card.
Paige.
I know things have been hard, but I truly hope you'll come. It would mean so much to me. I want to believe we can move forward one day. Love, Vanessa. I stared at the words until they blurred. There was no apology. No acknowledgement. Just a quiet, manipulative plea dressed up as kindness. I tossed the envelope onto the table and walked away. But it followed me. In my thoughts, in the whispers I overheard at family gatherings I hadn't attended. My cousin messaged me saying, "They're hoping you'll show up." It would calm things down. My aunt called and left a voicemail that said, "It's time to let go. She's still your sister." Everyone wanted a neat ending. A peaceful photo op closure wrapped in a wedding cake and fake smiles. But they didn't see the mess underneath it all. They hadn't felt the weight of betrayal crack down the middle of a life I thought was solid. They weren't the ones left behind, humiliated and gutted by the two people who should have loved me most. And yet, the more I sat with it, the more a strange calm began to settle. I wasn't who I was a year ago. That Paige would have stayed home, crying into a pillow, letting the pain swallow her whole. But now, after the therapy sessions, the endless talks with Mia, the long nights rebuilding myself, I realized something. They took a part of me, but they didn't break me. If I didn't show up, they'd write that story for me. She was bitter. She couldn't handle it.
She's still not over it.
But if I walked through those doors, chin up, spine straight, I'd be taking back something they thought they'd stolen. My voice. My dignity. My power. So I checked the box. Attending. Not for them.
For me.
You're not just going, Mia said, tossing clothes out of my closet like a woman on a mission. You're arriving. She dubbed it Operation Glow Up. I hadn't asked for it, but I didn't exactly resist either. It started with the dress. Sleek, deep emerald, off the shoulder. Fitted without being desperate, elegant without trying too hard. Then came the workouts. Nothing extreme, just a few sessions a week with a trainer Mia swore by, plus long walks and less wine. Not for anyone else, just to feel like myself again. Then there was the skincare. Facials. A massage or two. A ridiculous seaweed wrap I still don't understand. Mia dragged me to every appointment with the discipline of a coach and the excitement of a best friend seeing her project come to life. You're going to look so good, they'll wish they hadn't, she said, snapping a photo of me in the salon chair. I don't care what they think, I replied. Exactly, she said, grinning. That's why it's going to work. It was at a charity event a week before the wedding that I met Maxwell. I almost didn't go. I wasn't in the mood for champagne and small talk, but Mia insisted. She was on the planning committee and practically shoved the ticket into my hand. He was standing near the back, tall, clean-cut, with a quiet confidence I noticed before he even said a word. We ended up at the same table during dinner. He asked about the work I did, listened without glancing at his phone, and laughed at the right moments, not too hard, not too forced. It felt easy. We talked through dessert and into the silent auction. His smile was warm, his eyes curious, but never prying. When I mentioned the upcoming wedding, carefully edited, of course, he paused for a second. "That sounds intense," he said. I shrugged. "That's one word for it. You going alone?" I hesitated, then met his gaze. "Probably. Unless," he said with a half-smile, "you'd rather not." I raised an eyebrow. "You offering to be my date to a front-row seat at my Greek tragedy?"
He laughed.
"Only if you think having someone there might make it a little less awful. And not just anyone. Me." There was something so gentle in the way he said it. No savior complex. No agenda. Just genuine care. I said yes. Not because I needed to prove anything. Not because I wanted Jacob or Vanessa to see me with someone. But because Maxwell made me feel like myself again. And walking into that wedding with someone who saw me, after everything, felt like the most powerful move I could make. The welcome drinks were held at a fancy lakefront venue, all glass walls and flickering candles, the kind of place designed to impress. I stood outside for a second, taking it all in, the hum of conversation, the clinking of glasses, the soft jazz spilling out into the evening air. Then I stepped in. Maxwell was by my side, dressed in a navy suit that fit like it had been made for him. He rested a hand lightly at the small of my back, just enough to say I'm here without trying to claim me. Heads turned. Conversations dipped for half a second. Vanessa was near the bar, mid-laugh, holding a flute of champagne.
She froze when she saw me.
Her expression faltered. Just a flicker, but it was enough. Her gaze flicked to Maxwell, then back to me. Surprise, discomfort, something else I couldn't quite name passed across her face. Then I saw Jacob. His smile slipped. He tried to recover, nodding politely, but his eyes lingered too long. He didn't look happy. He looked exposed. Maxwell leaned close and whispered, "So far, so good?" I smiled. "So far, excellent." Mia appeared a moment later, glowing with pride. They look like they've seen a ghost. We made our way around the room, exchanging pleasantries. Maxwell was a natural, charming, warm, just the right amount of witty. He asked people thoughtful questions, remembered names, and even complimented the signature cocktail without sounding fake. He made it easy to stand there and breathe. My aunt gushed about how lovely he was. My cousin asked how long we'd been seeing each other. I smiled through it all, offering vague but polite answers. It wasn't about lying, it was about owning the moment. And for once, I didn't feel like a woman scorned. I felt steady.
Whole.
Across the room, I caught Vanessa watching us. Her smile looked tight, a little off. Jacob was speaking to someone, but she wasn't listening. Her hand hovered near his arm, but he didn't react. There was a stiffness between them now, a tension that hadn't been there before. I didn't need to know what was said behind closed doors. I could see it in the way he didn't look at her the way he used to look at me. I could feel it in the quiet cracks forming beneath their shiny surface. I turned back to Maxwell, who met my eyes with a soft, steady smile. Let them stare. I wasn't there to fall apart. I was there to rise. The rehearsal dinner was held in a rustic vineyard just outside the city. String lights hung between trees, casting a warm glow over the long tables filled with family, old friends, and too much wine. On the surface, everything looked picture-perfect. But underneath, you could feel it, the strain in the smiles, the hesitations before each toast, the undercurrent of something unsettled. I sat beside Maxwell, across from my parents. My mother barely looked at me. My father tried, offering small talk and awkward compliments, but even that felt forced. The air between us was thick with everything we hadn't said. The speeches began. Jacob's parents said a few sweet, predictable words. Vanessa's maid of honor made a joke about college parties and tequila. Laughter. Glasses raised. Then Vanessa stood. She looked beautiful. I'll admit that. Hair pinned just right, makeup flawless, her dress a shimmering gold that caught the light with every movement. She held her champagne with confidence and smiled as she spoke. Some people spend their lives chasing the wrong kind of love, she said, eyes scanning the crowd. They mistake comfort for passion, safety for connection. But when you finally find the real thing, the kind that challenges you, surprises you, holds up even when it's messy, that's when you know you've made the right choice. The room went still for half a beat. I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. But I felt it.
The blow.
Subtle and sharp, dressed up as wisdom. She didn't say my name. She didn't have to. Maxwell's hand slid across my knee, grounding me. Then he stood. I wasn't going to say anything, he began, lifting his glass. But I think sometimes the strongest people in the room are the ones who've lost everything and still show up. The chatter faded. Eyes turned. I've only known Paige for a short time, but what I see is someone full of grace. Someone who's walked through pain and didn't let it harden her. Who treats people with dignity, even when they don't deserve it. That kind of strength? That's rare. And damn inspiring. He paused, then smiled. So, here's to the people who rise, even when no one claps for them. To those who survive the story and still choose to write a better one. There was silence at first. Then applause. Actual applause. I looked around and saw faces softening, heads nodding, a few guests exchanging knowing glances. My aunt squeezed my hand. My cousin gave me a wink. Even my father, sitting across the table, raised his glass with something that almost looked like pride. Vanessa smiled through it all, but her jaw was set. She hadn't expected that. Neither had I. Maxwell sat down beside me and leaned in, his voice just for me. You didn't need me to say it, but I wanted them to know. I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded, feeling something I hadn't in a long, long time.
Scene.
The reception had started to wind down. Laughter and music floated through the hall, and guests drifted out toward the fire pit or lined up for one last drink. I needed a minute to breathe, to step away from it all, so I slipped into the restroom, grateful for the silence. I wasn't expecting to see her. Vanessa stood at the mirror, blotting her lipstick. Her eyes met mine in the reflection. For a moment, neither of us moved. The silence stretched long enough to become something sharp. Then she turned to face me. Of course you'd look perfect tonight, she said, half laughing. I raised an eyebrow. Was that supposed to be a compliment? She sighed and leaned against the counter.
No.
Maybe. I don't know. I stayed near the door, unsure if I should stay or walk away. But something in her face had changed. Less polished, less sure. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said quietly. With Jacob. I'm not here for a confession. I know. Her voice cracked a little. But I need you to hear it anyway. I folded my arms. Then say it. She looked down at the counter, her fingers fiddling with the edge of a tissue. You always had everything. You were the golden one. The responsible one. The one everyone looked up to. I was just the shadow. I didn't even know I hated that until Jacob started looking at me the way he used to look at you. I stayed quiet. I didn't take him to hurt you, she said. I took him because I thought maybe if he picked me, I'd finally be enough. There it was. Not an excuse. Not a plea. Just pain. For the first time, I didn't see the sister who betrayed me. I saw the girl who had spent her life trying to matter in a house where everything came to me first. I saw the ache that lived under all that glitter and confidence. It didn't make it okay, but I understood it. I loved him, I said softly. And I loved you. I know, she whispered. And I ruined both. I nodded, the weight of it all sinking into my chest. You did. We stood there for another moment, not quite enemies, not quite sisters. I don't forgive you, I said. I wouldn't ask you to, she replied. And somehow, that honesty, plain and bare, was more healing than any apology ever could have been. I found Cameron sitting alone on the patio after most of the guests had left. The fairy lights above him cast a soft glow, and he looked older somehow, tired, distant, like someone trying to fit into a life that didn't quite belong to him. He looked up as I approached, the same familiar eyes I used to trust completely, now shaded with something like regret. I was wondering if you'd say anything, he said. I wasn't going to, I replied, taking a seat across from him. But I figured we should close the book properly. He gave a small, bitter smile. You look happy. I am happy, I said, surprised at how true it felt. Not because of this weekend. Despite it. He nodded slowly, fiddling with the edge of his glass. I messed up. I know that. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence settle between us, not out of anger, but clarity. You didn't just cheat, I said. You dismantled a life we built together. You chose the one person you knew would break me more than anyone else could. That wasn't a mistake. It was a decision.
He winced.
I didn't think it through. No, you didn't. And that's why I'm not angry anymore. Because I finally understand something. What we had wasn't real. Not the way I thought it was. You loved the idea of me, but you never knew how to stay. He looked down, ashamed. I stood up. I hope it works out with her. But if it doesn't, don't pretend you didn't see it coming. I walked away before he could say anything else. I didn't need his response. The peace came from finally knowing I deserved more. And I had more. Maxwell was waiting for me outside the hotel. When he saw me, he didn't ask how it went. He just pulled me into his arms and held me there, steady and quiet. In the weeks that followed, we spent more time together, long walks, quiet nights, real conversations about real things. No masks. No games. He saw all of me, even the broken parts, and loved me not despite them, but through them. Vanessa and Cameron, I later heard, were struggling. Whispers of fights, of distance. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was the truth catching up. I didn't feel joy in their unraveling. I felt release. 6 months later, Maxwell proposed on a rainy afternoon in my tiny kitchen. No grand speeches. No big audience. Just a question, a ring, and the kind of love I once thought didn't exist. I said yes through tears, the good kind this time. Looking back now, I don't wish the betrayal hadn't happened. It broke me, yes. But it also forced me to rebuild with truth, with courage, with a heart no longer desperate to be chosen, because I had finally chosen myself. And in doing that, I found the love I never knew I was worthy of.